What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, as always, I'm joined by Shannon Times.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? So welcome to Wednesday's discussion episode. I almost messed up the intro. I don't know if anybody heard that. But I made it through. We pulled through, people. This is Cyber Awareness Month, so happy Cyber Awareness Month. Hopefully we continue our upward trend. So we're like three and a half times over our normal traffic last month. Not exactly sure why. I like to believe it's because people love us, but also we had a bunch of really good guests last month. So I like to also believe that they brought in a bunch of traffic as well. I'm just hoping we retain some of those people. So if you have not already, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to that. Without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this one actually comes from darkreading.com, right? Written by Becky Bracken, and it's Government Shutdown, Poised to Stress Nation's Cybersecurity Supply Chain. So it was actually avoided. This was written a couple days before they actually came to a resolution on delaying a shutdown. I say delaying a shutdown because this what they've come up with is only good for 45 days, right? So November 17th, we're going to have to go through this. We got to get this all settled before then, right? But the big point that she hits on in this article, CISA announces it'll have to furlough more than 80% of staff indefinitely if Congress can't reach an agreement to fund the federal government. So this is what we were facing down, right? And this is what we will be facing down in the future. Like the way that things are currently set up is that we're looking at there being 80% loss of, not loss, but a furlough of staff if we go into situations where we can't pass a budget, right? So this is where the discussion comes in, right? So like for me, I want to think we can do this differently. Like we can fund this differently to where we don't run down to this, because whatever your politics may be, or whatever you may believe, like this is not good for anybody, right? Like one side wants to blame the other, and then the other one says no, it's the other one, but that doesn't matter, right? Like what happens is real life things that can happen, right? That can affect people's lives. Because of what CISA provides, like when it comes to, ransomware attacks and providing assistance whenever people need, companies or people require the assistance to get out of these situations. This is what's being put at risk here, right? It puts infrastructure at risk, right? So if you have a government shutdown, people are furloughed. Nobody is watching, the enemy. You know what I'm saying? Is what it comes down to, right? Because we talked about this in a couple articles before, right? We talk about the amount of contractors and outside help that is needed by the federal government, you know what I mean, from other companies, right? So like this is one of those things where if you're a government employee, you run the risk of not being there, right? Like you got to hope your company may say, go ahead and stay on, we're going to take it out of our pocket. But let's be real here, right? That's not going to happen, right? These companies are making money, to where I don't think they're necessarily saving it to pay in situations like this. They assume the government's just going to keep running, because for the most part it does, right? Like we've had times where things have had the gap in them where they've broken down, like a couple times when we were active, right? Like so I remember one time actually we were stationed together in Virginia, man. We ended up getting like partial paychecks. Like we still had to be there, but like it was weird the way they paid us out on the LES. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were in Virginia at the time.
Yeah, no, I remember. It was really, really weird because it was only the second time there was an actual shutdown, right? I think the first one was during the Clinton administration, which would have been before both our time.
Right. Well, I don't know, man. I remember being in basic reading my book saying Clinton was the commander in chief. So I joined in '99. So
oh yeah, I guess so. Wow.
I don't think it was during that time. I think it was before that though. But
yeah,
when I joined in '99, we had these books. Not to get off topic, we had these books where you had to read through your chain of command and went all to the president.
Yeah, they have tablets now, I think.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But you got to be careful with that, right? Because that requires cybersecurity, right? And this is what we talk about here. But no, the discussion here is for me, like what it tends to be is that if a government shutdown is going to degrade cybersecurity like this, where it'll affect, supply chain issues, critical infrastructure, transportation, healthcare, things of that nature, like we need to find a different way to fund it or to have it exempt when it comes to things like this, right? Like we could say, okay, government's going to shut down for these things, but we have to determine what is important, right? And cybersecurity just seems like one of those things, right? And there are other things that will fall by the wayside. I get it, and it's more important to other people, but like this is the world we live in today, right? Like cybersecurity, we talk about this before any tank rolls in, plane, sub, whatever, there's going to be a cybersecurity attack, right? So we can't allow this gap to happen for something to, for a country or some, I don't want to say a country, but for our enemies, right? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be a country, right? It could be some hacker sitting in their basement in Russia somewhere, right? Like they're not necessarily doing it for Russia, but they do it because they don't like America for whatever reason. Um, Allow them to get their foot in the door because we can't come to a decision on how to fund these people that provide this cybersecurity assistance for us, right? So this is just, we got to stop doing this, man. Like it's becoming more and more prevalent throughout the years, right? So like I talked about the time it happened to us, you know what I mean? But it's been a few times since then that it's happened to where it's like, this is why are we going this route? And as it stands now, like it affects me more, right? Because I do work for the government as a contractor, right? So for me, I was just going to be, you know, going around like I was telling Ryan this off air, like I was just going to be going around with my wife, just holding hands around the city, planning picnics, you know what I mean, during my downtime, you know, catching movies in the middle of the day type stuff, you know what I mean. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where we've got to figure out a better way to avoid this type of thing from happening. And we did this time, right? But again, this is just kicking the can down the road, right, Ryan? Like this is not where we need to be with this. We got to find a better solution. So, what's your thoughts on this?
No, I totally agree. I think it's a matter of mindset. Like if the powers that be are okay with people not receiving a paycheck, they can care less about cyber defense in the same breath, right? Like because at the end of the day, your constituents should be pretty important to you because those people put you in power, those people you're supposed to be defending, things of that nature. But however, you just keep continuously kicking the can down the road. So I don't know if they will ever weigh cybersecurity to the proper extent in relation to government funding and in the case of political posturing and things of that nature, right? Like so regardless if your team red, blue, green, whatever, um, you should be pretty upset that they just cannot agree upon a budget, which is a big portion of their job, right? Like, so it's infuriating in that case, but then it has all these second and third order effects. Because at the end of the day, um, patriotism does not feed your family. However, ransomware does, right? So if you're a bad guy, you'll make money off of this deal. But if you're a good guy, you're not gonna jump on the keyboard just because you feel as though like I need to be doing my job. That's not paying bills. That's not keeping the lights on. So they need to figure out a way of properly funding this because you're not going to have people work for free. This is not going to happen. It's just I can't fathom people doing it for a long period of time. Like you might get people for a short period of time. Like we continuously worked during these times because we're green sweepers, blue sweepers, whatever you want to call it, because we're under contract at the end of the day. Like not only do we do it because like, hey, we want to protect our nation and things of that nature, but we're like, they're gonna pay us eventually so we can just kind of get through it. But that's not the case with a lot of people. Like the 80% of citizens that have been laid off, would they have been back paid? We don't know. Like some of them would have, but all 80%? Maybe
I
not.
don't. So the ones, the way I understand it is civil service would have been right because they would have furloughed the civil service
Yeah.
employees as well, right? Like they would have been back paid, but the people that were under contract. So unless you were taking some type of PTO or paid leave that was already been accounted for and
Like
paid,
yeah, baked in.
yeah, you were not getting paid. Like you would either take leave without pay or you take your PTO, which would get you paid, but then you're running through your PTO, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, like I have some PTO. I mean, after my trip to Hawaii, which was fabulous, by the way, after my trip to Hawaii, like I had used up a fair amount of PTO. Like I had some, but knowing that the holidays are coming up, like I want to take more time, so I wouldn't have used it for this time. Like I've saved a few nickels, you know what I mean? So like I would have just done leave without pay, and we'd have just had to suffer through it. But like
Right,
for me,
right.
I get other payment from the government, right? I have a retirement, things of that nature that were still coming. Now, that still could have been delayed, right? Because the people that make sure that all that gets handled may not.
Yeah, yeah, the second, third order effects, right? People who
Right, yeah,
actually cut the check
right, right,
might have been furloughed as well.
yeah,
So I just don't know. Like I just think that it's because I don't get big into politics. I don't really pick sides. Things like everybody says, oh, they don't do that. I really don't. Like, I just want people to do their job because I do my job. If I want to get, feed my family, keep the lights on, I want them to do theirs. Like, it just feels like there's no consequences to playing with people's paychecks. And in this case, they would be playing with national defense as well, right? Because you're going to say like, no, there would be no drop in tanks or bombs or things of that nature. Like if we need to react, we still have people in uniform who could do that. That is the case. But what about all of the people who support them who are not in the military, right? It's like we talked about in the last episode, how AI is used to augment human decision making. These like the support team is big. The support team for the DoD is a very large bench of people. You know what I mean? That do a lot of interesting things, like and or do all the things, depending upon what type of job they have. Like there's certain functions of the Department of Defense that are all civilian, right? Like if you just say, "Hey, don't come to work today," you find out really quickly how a lot of things just can't get done. Like you pick up a phone to call somebody, and Mr. or Miss so and so is not there. So then you can't do your job as a military member without all of these other people who have to do their jobs, right? It's a humongous machine. And they just play around with it every year. It's like, you know what? Because I can't get whatever bill I want passed, I'm just not going to vote. And I'm thinking that there's a whole order of other things. So I don't know. Again, I'm not team red or blue or green or whatever in this circumstance. I just like, how can we just not pay these people because they're not doing their job? You know what I mean? Like, because they put on their own pay raises. But I digress. This is like, who is watching the watchers in this case? Because like, if I'm a bad actor, regardless if I'm a nation state or just a random dude in the basement, or gal, right? I'm not being sexist. A person in a hoodie in a dark room, because that's what hackers do apparently, with their RGB keyboards. Um, if I'm one of these people, I'm watching the news, right? Because then this is my opening, right? You're broadcasting this on the national stage, C-SPAN, whatever. That hey, we're just not going to fund the government and then cause pain and friction to get whatever we want passed, whether it be political, ideological, whatever. You put the entire nation in jeopardy by doing so. So I thought the article that you submitted as well was like, hey, we dodged the bullet, but 45 days from now we have to do this again. So we're just kicking the can down the road, and it affects everything from the literal software we use to protect ourselves to our SCADA systems, the water, power, nuclear, everything is tied into passing the budget, like from big things all the way down to the smallest things. Like even vendor questionnaires won't go out, right? We're not vetting our vendors because someone has to do that. Someone has to create this thing, have to push it out. You're not paying them, they're not going to show up to do it. So it has a humongous ripple effect. It affects the entire chain of cyber defense.
And this could also make it where you just don't attract that talent you want to attract too, because they're like, I don't want to have to deal with this. Like I've been
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
you.
Where I have to be concerned every so often that I just won't get paid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like because they're not having issues on the private sector, but the private sector has to depend on the national defense as well, right? So like you impact everybody.
It may come to a point where with the private sector, they may just be like, the juice isn't worth the squeeze to go after these government contracts at some point, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you guys are going to keep doing this, like, I'm going to keep losing talent. Like, people are not going to want to come to my company to work to assist the DoD because you guys keep shutting down every 45 days. Or there's a threat of a shutdown and they can't feed their families or whatever it may be, right?
Right.
Not everybody wants to walk hand in hand with their wife around the city, planning picnics.
Right.
Going
Right. Exactly.
right.
But I don't know. I digress. I think people understand the implications. I just don't think we understand how to make them do what they're supposed to do in a timely manner. Like that still hasn't been figured out yet. Yeah, because we're still picking sides. Like at the end of the day, like a lot of people won't get paid regardless of their political affiliation. Just because you vote red or blue doesn't mean that you're going to be able to keep your lights on. Like you have to think beyond that. To the bigger picture is getting them to do their job. So definitely continue to tune into all the websites that go by our name. Give me a person at Rai Security Guy on almost all the social medias. Stay safe, stay secure.